All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second Career Ed Talks. And today's talk is the Career Cluster Architecture and Construction. So we have 4 panelists today, and they will be speaking about what they do in their day-to-day lives, how they got to where they are, the career path that they have chosen, their educational backgrounds, and they'll be sharing a little bit about their journeys through their life to where they are right now in their career. Hopefully, students, you can get some good information, learn a few things. This is very informal, so please feel free to ask questions. Students, your teachers will be the moderator on your side, so you can ask them the question and then they will ask it of the panelists. So we will go ahead and get started. And let's start with Gena. Do you mind go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us your title and where you work.
Hello, my name is Gena Knight, and I am currently a project manager at B&I Contractors.
Thank you. And James?
I'm James Martin. I'm also a project manager for B&I Contractors. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree out of University of Central Florida.
And let's go to Carl.
Carl Ferraro, Director of Sales at American Builder Supply in Fort Myers.
And Ryan.
Ryan Richards. I'm an architect and partner with RG Architects. Do primarily commercial institutional work and pretty much anything but residential.
You guys have to spot you and your sister.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So the first question will kind of follow up. James already told us that he studied mechanical engineering, correct, at UCF?
That's correct.
Okay, let's hear from Gena. Where did you go and what did you study?
I started many moons ago at Florida State University seeking a degree in chemical engineering that I did not complete. So I ended up getting my AA from what is now Florida Southwestern, my bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Florida Gulf Coast University, and then I also have a master's in renewable energy engineering, also from FGCU.
I understand.
And Carl.
I went undergrad bachelor's degree in environmental science and then master's degree at University of New Haven in industrial hygiene. Unrelated to the field I'm in today, but definitely well worth the education.
I've got the Zoom open.
And Ryan.
Said, oh, Miss Nancy,
I did a 5-year bachelor's degree program at the University of Miami. It's a professional degree. It's not quite a master's, but it does allow you to take the exam and pass the test to get licensed.
Unfortunately.
So you can see, students, that there is quite a range of different degrees, different pathways that you can go. So that kind of brings me to the next question. Are there opportunities within your fields for students who are coming right out of high school? Do they have to get a bachelor's or a master's, or are there opportunities even in your workplaces where you are for students to get jobs without any sort of specialized degree? So Ryan, we'll start with you.
Honestly, some kind of technical training. I mean, we are a very software-driven industry. So building, modeling, things like that can be done through a 2-year technical school to be a good draftsman and useful to a company like ours. Directly out of high school, yeah, there's some internship opportunities, but we like to see kind of a career path in progress, and could potentially part-time or help with that, as opposed to coming on as a full-time employee with, none of that technical training.
Go ahead in the meeting. Y'all talk to Miss Nancy, and I told her.
Carl, how about you?
Similar to Ryan, we highly support and recommend an educational path, but there is opportunities right out of high school to come into our field in the construction industry. We have a manager trainee program that is geared towards right out of high school or right out of college without any experience, and to rotate throughout the business and learn many parts of the business. So we would recommend educational path, but do have opportunities.
And I'd like to build on what Carl had said there, that you know, in this field of in design and building and permitting, practical field experience is really key. You know, when I was in college, I had part-time jobs, you know, slinging concrete block, mixing mud, being on masonry crews, you know, during the summer and on breaks. But that practical field knowledge comes in real handy late in life. So spending some years in the field is definitely a bonus in this industry here.
And then Gena, how about for you guys?
We certainly have opportunities on all spectrums, trade route, college route. We have a diverse offering, being mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then a lot of our support groups that help support the entire enterprise. So depending on their interests, there's a lot of opportunities at all levels.
Thank you. And before we move on, I did want to give, for the students, a welcome to Emily. Emily is from Lee Building Industry Association, so she's on here. Hi, Emily. And then
Hi.
Mr. Gary Griffin, he is from B&I, so he is also on here. So students, if you wanted to wave and say hello.
And I can elaborate on what Gena talked about.
Sure.
There is a pathway without going to either a 2-year or 4-year university for associate's or bachelor's degree to work in the trades. In our company, it would be as an HVAC technician, an electrician, a plumber. Usually those require you to develop some field experience, working as a helper and learning the trade at that level. But we do offer to our employees who are working through the trades a 4-year apprenticeship program. And we actually pay for that once the candidate is sort of proven themselves here at our company. It is a night school option. You actually have to work. Part of the apprenticeship is you have to receive 2,000 hours a year of on-job training, which is essentially your work during the day. And then you go to school 2 days a week at night during the school year. So that path's available. Again, we usually don't take students directly out of high school into that program, but we are working with the district to develop a pre-apprenticeship program for students that really want to pursue that pathway. We've had a couple of students come out of South Lee County High School and East Lee County High School that are pursuing that pathway that came out of those welding or construction technology programs.
Thank you for that. And actually, let's kind of go over what each of your companies do and what, how broad, your reach is within Southwest Florida. So James, do you want to give us some of that background information about B&I? What exactly
Sure.
you guys do and where all your reach is here in the area?
So like Gary and Gena said, we are a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractor. We also do service work, so doing the maintenance and like emergency repairs on systems that go down. Similar to Ryan, we do more large-scale commercial, but also inside of our office atmosphere, we have purchasing, accounting, safety, warehouse technicians, so really cover the whole gamut of employment opportunities. But specifically, it's centered around the contracting, and we do go as far north as Tampa or even over to the other coast and on occasions down into the Caribbean.
All right, Carl, same question for you.
We supply and install interior and exterior doors and windows locally, Lee, Collier, and Charlotte counties. The company American Builder Supply services the state of Florida, and it's owned by Kodiak Building Company that is covers the United States in various trades. The typical customer is the production home builder or semi-custom home builder, and it's primarily focused on new construction. Similar to James, we have multiple positions from purchasing to management, service technicians, service managers, operations managers, sales managers, field managers. So there's a substantial opportunity for employment.
Thank you. And then Ryan, how about you with RG Architects?
We're heavy in commercial and institutional work, a lot of school works. Like right now, our biggest projects are at Florida Gulf Coast University. Their new water school they're doing out there. We're doing a middle school for the county school district, but a lot of municipal work too. We're working like down at Fort Myers Beach on some downtown refurbishments. You know, there's some fun projects like that. Some of the more interesting ones, and then a lot of continuing services stuff like James had mentioned of kind of fixing a kitchen over the summer, or kind of come in and remodeling, making spaces more office spaces more useful for people. Some of the retail shell buildings that you see around up and down 41, we're a small office. We're 10 people right now out of a single location, and we service Charlotte, Lee County, and Collier counties. So anything from Everglades City School is always a fun project. So it's going to take a whole day to get down there and back. But that's really it in a nutshell.
And Ryan, do you also have other opportunities other than just as an architect? Does your company hire other positions, accounting?
Well, again, being on just 10 people, we have, one person that takes care of billing and accounting and proposals. And the rest are either architects or on a CAD tech or on a path to become an architect. So that's really kind of the productivity side of it. We all see projects beginning to end. So if you start drawing it in the beginning, you'll be out there getting your boots dirty at the end, making sure it happens and it gets built right. So, going through the whole life cycle of the project and then going through a number of them and moving on, it's essentially all, career path type architects and designers.
I want to take a chance now to open it up to any students. Do we have any student questions? And teachers, just to give you a heads up, you are muted, so you may need to unmute.
Hey, okay, so he has a question. What are the steps in the design process and how do they organize that? Like design, you mean architect when they want to design a building or something like that?
Schools.
Like a school, like what steps do they take in order to design a school or anything they're designing?
How buildings.
Well, we have this very clear layout that we like to use. It starts off with programming and defining exactly what is needed, what the client is looking to accomplish. How many student desks are we expected to fit in it? This is all kind of driven by state funding. You get a specific number of student stations that the district is allowed to expand for. So once we define those classrooms, then we'll go into like that programming phase of what kind of specialty services will this particular school have. Some of the vocational programs, each middle school, a high school, they may have like maker spaces or tech labs, or what exactly are these classroom programs that's going to be custom to. So then once we have this kit of parts of all these spaces that are needed, then you kind of go about arranging them and stacking them in the most efficient manner you can. Starting a new school, like a middle school, it's very seldom like a from scratch process. There's kind of an established pattern. The district buys like prototype designs, like they know what they want. You've seen them grow with each generation. If you drive by some of the schools built in the last 10 years or so, they look pretty similar in a lot of cases, elementary, middle, and even some of the high schools. So once you kind of take that kit of parts that had already been established and we know works, then we interview staff and see if there's better ways to manage the process. How is supervision? How is security? Is there parts of the building that could be improved upon? And then going and dealing and talking to the district to see what type of programs are going to be fit into these spaces. So it's kind of a drawn out process. And once we've kind of got that blessed, nailed down, know exactly what we're building, we get into construction documents, the technical aspects of how we putting the walls together. We release our engineers to start designing the AC systems. the electrical panels, where all the outlets and data jacks are going classroom by classroom, putting in every light fixture and every, tack board, things on the wall, so that we have a set of plans that can be put out to, people like B&I for bid, and then you get to quantify the costs associated with that, and are we still in budget at that point? So you're putting together this set of documents that it's got to be coordinated, and these tend to be, complex building types with, strict requirements in certain regards, especially with life safety systems, energy efficiency. All these things kind of have to come together to, create a classroom space that's, conducive to learning, and also at a good and reasonable price for our client. Does that kind of answer the question in a long way?
Yes, and he was wondering, what would he go major in college, or what would be the steps to become where you are today? Other than, the one gentleman said getting his hands dirty, doing some masonry, things of that nature. But as he's preparing to set up a plan, what should his area of focus be in, either at FSW or a four-year institution?
Well, I'd search the accredited institutions in the state. I know FSW has a good technical program. They do teach drafting and building modeling. That would be kind of that first step to get into a firm. On the four-year program side, we don't have anything locally. And that's always kind of a challenge for us as a company, is that we have to import all of our help from somewhere else. They all got degrees somewhere else, and we had to talk them into moving to Fort Myers. I got originally hired by a larger firm after graduation in Miami, and moved here cold turkey for the job opportunity. And then, 20 years later, I'm still doing it and have my own practice. But there's good schools. I think USF, UCF, UF are the closest public institutions. And what you would need to do there is like a four-year bachelor's degree, and then a two-year master's degree to become eligible for licensing. I went to University of Miami, which is a little bit more expensive. I was also an out-of-state student, so it wouldn't have really mattered. I wouldn't have gotten the in-state break that made some of the other schools attractive. But they had a 5-year accredited program that I was able to finish and get licensed from there. So it takes a while. There's 3-4 years of mandatory internship. You have to be working under a licensed architect and supervised by one before you become eligible to take the test. And I think right now they have it cut into just 6 different exams. So it's definitely a life path that takes some dedication.
Gena, do you want to touch on kind of that same question from your perspective? What educational focus should students have that are interested in going into engineering and working with a larger construction company?
I think if you're thinking about going into engineering, you want to think about what you want your workplace environment to look like at the end of your degree. Is it you want to be around people? Do you want to be in a lab? Do you want to be out in work boots and walking a job and making sure that your design has been met, constructed as design, and verifying it. And then you have to think about what really interests you. So don't get stuck in the classes that you have to take to get there. Think about where you want to be at the end of it, because there's like Ryan mentioned, it is a life path in engineering to get your PE, because we do have to work under the supervision of a licensed PE, and then we too have to sit for testing to become licensed professional engineers. My educational background doesn't necessarily reflect typically my counterparts in our type of construction or mechanical engineers like James Martin. As a civil engineer, most of what I have learned, it's the thinking skills that support and aid me in my career path. Whatever you do choose, you have to make sure that you're passionate about it, because you have to get through, one class at a time to get to the end of it. Sorry, that was a very long-winded response.
No, that's perfect. And then Carl, same question for you. What educational opportunities, what should student focus be?
Florida Gulf Coast University recently started their construction management program. It's a great foundation and would open up many career opportunities within the construction industry. University of Florida has an exceptional program. There's several programs across the United States. Auburn has a great program. Although none of those are required to get into the career, it would definitely advance your career and give you a solid foundation to have multiple opportunities within construction.
Thank you. Ms. Sukovich, did your class have a question? I can actually unmute you from here if you wanted to ask.
There it goes.
There we go.
We're having all kinds of technical difficulties this morning. It's been one of those days, it seems. I think our biggest question is, the majority of my students are not college bound. So they're really more interested in those hands-on approaches. I was actually just talking to Jacob about B&I and some of the different opportunities. And the question came up of, once you get working with the company, what would you expect on a day-to-day basis? Like, what would a day-to-day job for a high schooler that just graduated actually look like?
Very good question. So what is your normal daily schedule or routine? Are you in a cubicle? Are you in an office with other people? Are you outside? Does it change from day to day? So let's start with James. Do you want to go ahead and take that question?
Sure. So most likely coming from high school directly into a trade, you would be working hands-on in the field on a day-to-day basis. Obviously having math skills to be able to measure, calculate, and do takeoffs and things of that nature would be a huge help to you. And then like Gary touched on, we do encourage our employees to get into apprenticeship programs where they really hone the skills that are required to move up that particular career path. We do have, you would start as like a helper, work your way to a mechanic, possibly to a foreman, where you would actually be in charge of the entire crew, maybe even to superintendent, or you would be in charge of multiple projects, and even up to like a department manager, where you'd be responsible for the entire operation. But your day-to-day starting out would be in the field, up and down ladders, working with equipment, lifting, using tools, and doing the necessary groundwork so that you understand all the different processes that have to do with that type of system of whatever it was you were interested in going into, whether that be sheet metal, pipe fitting and welding, plumbing, or the electrical trade.
Yeah, and if I can, James described it well. The other paths available, there are programs at the Fort Myers Technical, and actually it's the Fort Myers Technical College, right, Kelly? I get they changed the name a few times over the last 2 years. There are programs through that school. They're expensive, probably no more so than college. Probably the cost is similar to what you'd pay to go to college. They're not as drawn out as college. You can usually get through one in a year to a year and a half. There are those programs for HVAC, for electrical. They're similar to the apprenticeship curriculum, but they're just more intensive because they're not designed that you would go through them while you're working necessarily, or you may have a night job and work at night. But all of our work is generally like a 7 to 3:30 regular work day. There is a lot of after hours requirements for those trades, because when we do shutdowns or when we work in existing buildings, sometimes you have to work at night. Transportation is a pretty common barrier. We often require our employees who work in the field, as James described, they're working on job sites, they're working on schools, they're working on hospitals. So they have to get transportation. We often try to help with that, but it's not something we can always do. So that you generally have to have reliable transportation and be able to get to the job site so you can put in your work day. But again, there's several paths for that. Some of them require on job, some of them you can pay for and sort of accelerate that process. And believe it or not, you can still get Pell Grant dollars and those kinds of financial assistance while you're going through that process. And the foundation, I think, has resources that can describe that and help you understand it better if you're interested in it. So, you know, it's just like everything else. You got to learn, you got to develop additional skills, and that you can do it through Fort Myers Technical College. You can do it through apprenticeship and working on job sites, but you still have to be reliably able to get to job sites and be a part of our crews in order to learn that trade in the field too.
Yeah, students, Gary brings up a very good point. Education is not just at a college or a university. You can also get a very good education at a technical college. We have Fort Myers Tech and Cape Coral Tech that are right here. They're connected to the school district. And like Gary said, most of their programs are much shorter than if you went to a state college or university. You could finish within a year. And those programs are eligible for Pell Grant funds. So that's your FAFSA. So when you become a senior, keep your eye out, give Stella a call, and she can come help you complete your financial aid application. And those monies can help cover, and sometimes they can completely cover if you qualify for the full amount. This year, I believe it's like over $6,000 in Pell Grant that's available per year. So if you have a program that's only going to take you a year, and it's going to cost you $5,000, but you get $6,000, that completely covers your entire cost. So keep that in mind when you become seniors. Fill out those financial aid forms, because if you qualify, and a lot of students qualify that don't think they will, it is based on your family income, but you never know until you actually fill it out. So make sure you fill out those forms and see what you can qualify for. Those funds can be used at technical schools for certifications. They can be used at state colleges, like FSW is a state college, and then they can also be used at four-year universities like FGCU. The difference in cost, just to quickly go over, and then I'll jump to Ryan and have Ryan tell us about a day in the life. The difference in cost with those colleges, for a state university, you're only going to pay about $4,000 a year, maybe $5,000 a year for your program. And you're finished in 2 years.
Kelly, let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
This is a reaction to the teacher who said many of her kids or her students, I should say, are not college bound. You know, B&I was founded in 1960 by a pipe fitter and a plumber. He learned pipe fitting and plumbing serving in the U.S. Navy during World War II. And he built a large company that's now 750 plus employees. So there's really great paths regardless. Statistically, yeah, you're more likely to make a little more money if you do go to college. We know that. But we also know that a lot of wildly successful people do not go to college and have great success in their careers. So your opportunity is open. Usually it goes back to what Gena described, which is critical thinking skills and leadership skills, believe it or not, are very important if you're going to be a field leader, because you're directing crews. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but don't think the only way I can get ahead is to go to college. That's a good way to get ahead, but there are plenty of ways to get ahead as long as you keep learning and expanding your knowledge.
Very, very good points. Yeah, a lot of times employers are just looking for those foundational skills. They're looking to see if you can communicate. Do you have, do you have leadership skills? Are you a team player? And those are the things that they're really looking for. Obviously, you also have to have some skills. They don't want you to end up being hurt on the job site. But those foundational skills are very important. And those are skills that you can learn and you can practice right now while you're in high school. So take advantage of opportunities where you can be a leader. So get involved in clubs, get involved with volunteer organizations, sports, something within school that can help push you and help build those skills a little more. And then just to finish up, universities locally, yes, we have FGCU. They do have a wonderful construction management program. And most of your universities, your public ones, are only going to cost you around, I would say, anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 a year. So keep in mind that those Pell Grants can help you with all of those technical schools, state colleges, and four-year universities. So let's go ahead and jump over to Ryan, and then we'll jump to Carl, and just kind of give us an overview of what a day in the life is like for you and for each of your positions.
Well, as you can kind of tell from the office setting, people going by, this is a big studio space. So it's kind of like, well, all roommates in here. I'm trying to be good with my mute because there's other people on the phone, people going and getting a cup of coffee. The break room's right behind me, the back door, you know. So it's a big collaborative space, and we're constantly bouncing different ideas, different questions off of each other, trying to come up with the best solution. And it's a really kind of a problem solving type of day. That said, it's wildly erratic on what our daily schedule would look like. If I wasn't in the office this morning, I'd probably be walking around on a job site, you know, sweating and getting my shoes dirty. But certain days, you know, there's other aspects of it. Winning jobs, working on presentations, communication skills, public speaking are all really important. Not to help you get the jobs, and not just, you know, nothing is ever handed to anybody, right? So you got to go out and work for them on that end. And there's kind of that jacket tie aspect to the marketing, communication that night, doing a lot of volunteer work, giving back to some of these schools and universities in any way you can, and working on fundraising for them as well. You know, there's golf is almost, you know, a job requirement sometimes, certain days. So, you know, it depends on what your calendar looks like. It can swing wildly. You know, there's a lot of office days, and then a lot of field work, and then also a lot of you know, dress up days as well. So that's
Thank
you know.
you. And then Carl.
My day typically involves multiple conversations with customers, either on the job site, pre-pandemic at their office. We don't do that as much as we used to. And then also have to visit our facility frequently for meetings with the operation. We do have a facility of about 50 employees. So we pre-assemble interior and exterior doors at our shop and deliver them to the job site. So a career path could be in the office, could be in the field, could be in the shop or delivery aspect of the business. Typically, somebody out of high school we'd rotate them through all those facets of the business and see what they were truly interested in, and then develop a career around that.
I guess that's another really good question to ask is, do your organizations allow for any sort of high school internship, job shadowing, any opportunities for high schoolers to come in and see kind of what you do and experience it and determine if that's actually a pathway that they would like to pursue? Because it is just as important for students to find out what they don't like as it is to find out what they do like. So is that something that your organizations allow? Carl.
We've held formal events with high school students to bring them into the facility and walk them through a day in the life to see if they would be interested in a career in construction. And we would be happy to sponsor any events like that, or have any direct conversations with students that have further questions or would like to see what our facility and business looks like.
Awesome, thank you for that. Gena, what about B&I?
I would generally defer to Gary for that question. We do have regular tours with STEM at Work, and we've had different opportunities. I know that we were scheduled to have an intern over this past summer. That was a high school student that, you know, COVID kind of did not allow that to happen. But I know as a group with project managers, we make every effort to make ourselves available to students to answer questions, whether it be through our affiliation with B&I or our affiliation with ASHRAE, which is a professional association that we participate in.
Yeah, and Gina said it right. With high school students, we try to provide opportunities for them to come in and see the business, but we generally don't bring in interns. We do college interns for the more professional positions, but unfortunately, we can't bring a student that's under 18 in to work in our field because of the OSHA requirements. The government's deemed that that's unsafe. We can't even have them use a power tool or climb a ladder. And you really can't work on our crews if you can't do those two things. So it's unfortunate because when I was growing up, I did that in high school, but things have changed over those decades since.
And Ryan, what about you?
We have had one high school intern come in for a summer, and what you could help out with is primarily on the administrative side. We do move a good bit of paperwork. There's filing, putting together proposals, and a little bit of a gopher. Obviously, mobility would be key. Going in the print shop, getting drawings, maybe taking pay apps somewhere or delivering proposals to a client. So that would help quite a bit, but it would be pretty light, and we probably have enough downtime that we'd task them with learning some software to make them a little bit more productive, and kind of that career path if they're choosing it, that we'd want them to know how to model a building eventually.
So Ryan, I'm going to actually start with you for this question. What is the pay scale? This is always one thing students want to know. So what is the lowest amount? So if you have someone coming in who maybe doesn't have that higher level of education, what can they expect to make average? And then what is kind of the highest that someone with your experience would make?
Wow, that's kind of a tough question there. We don't have a lot of people come into us that aren't, college graduates, honestly. I mean, it's an occasional work with the foundation and, give a kid something to do for a few months. I wouldn't venture to guess on how we'd use them. I know for, kids coming out of college, you're probably in the 45 to 50,000 a year range to start. And that varies wildly dependent on location. Obviously, larger cities are going to have larger cost of living, to maintain the same quality of life. That may vary throughout, and then even state to state when it comes to taxes and things of that nature. So that's kind of where we would start college graduates at. Things like interns in the summer, maybe looking at like $15 an hour or so. To kind of be a gopher, run errands, and put paperwork together, and getting into that aspect of the community service, and as Gina had brought up, our organization is the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, and we have a sub-chapters called AIAS, which is the same but adding students at the end. Now these chapters are kind of located at all of your accredited school universities. I think USF would probably be the closest to one, maybe even a Sarasota school. But you can get involved with them and start hearing about, the ongoings of lectures. There's always conferences, showing up, getting to meet people, working on the interpersonal skills, going to some design conference and just, talking to people and see how the culture of the profession works and the design industry in general. It's very it's a marriage between art, engineering and math, so to speak. So did I wander off topic quite a bit there? I'm sorry, I lost myself.
That's okay. We were just talking pay scale, kind of what the
pay scale, yeah,
and then what the top level.
So yeah, like I said, you're probably starting at $15-20 an hour hourly rate type of position, and if you become a college graduate, you're 45-50 range. Once you get your license and put your years in, maybe you're 60-70. And like any business, you want the real money until you actually own it.
Thank you. Carl, what about you? What's kind of the entry pay and then kind of at the very top?
Well, due to the variety of positions we have, I would say the rate would be $12 an hour. So no experience really in training type position, and then that can go all the way up to general management, operations management of $75 to $100 a year, with substantial benefit packages for all employees. I think that's something to always consider when looking at a job, is what are the benefits offer. Sometimes the benefit costs, especially healthcare today, can far outweigh your hourly rate or your salary. Your trainee program pays in the mid-30s, and that's somebody with or without college experience qualify for company benefits such as 401k and healthcare.
Thank you. And then James, do you want to speak on behalf of B&I?
Sure, Gary may elaborate a little bit once I'm done, but so for our field labor, I believe we start somewhere around a $12 an hour, or maybe even up from there if there's some previous experience or some sort of like skill set development that took place beforehand. And then obviously the gamut goes wild from there, but up into probably possible six figures for managing departments and things of that nature.
Thank you. We are getting close to the end of our time, so I want to make sure that if we have any more student questions, let's take one or two last student questions. If anyone has any. Ms. Sukovich, any questions?
Oh, can I just add one more thing while we're waiting if a question comes in?
Yeah, yep.
So Carl very much hit it on the nose, I think, with benefits packages. That's a very important thing to watch for as you're going into the job market. B&I is not the employer that I started with coming out of college, but we are an employee-owned company and therefore offer a kind of unique set of benefits because of it. And it's one of the reasons that I sought out the job, and it really, I think, sets it apart from the others that I had previously. So, once you're past that point of like what your initial pay is, the benefits package can make a substantial difference in one job to another.
Exactly. Definitely something to keep in mind, students, when you're looking at future careers and future jobs. Ms. Sukovich, did you have a question?
Yeah, one of our students was wondering, you guys mentioned the benefits package, but they are teenagers. What do your benefit packages typically include? And are there any like fringe type benefits? Like I know some companies have employee lounge areas that are a nice place to kind of go unwind, and they give breaks throughout the day, that kind of thing.
Gena, do you want to start with that question?
Well, depending on your role, there is an employee lounges when you're out in the field. The general contractor may designate a shaded area for you to take break and have lunch. But at B&I, we make a true commitment to our employees because we are an employee-owned company. So we plan events regularly. Now COVID has altered some of that. But we do have regular events where we celebrate our employees. Gary comes out and does site visits with our employees. We do employee appreciation events on top of the fact that we are employee owned. So we do have an ESOP, which would be towards your future, towards retirement. Everybody, once you get past about 25, you'll start thinking about when you want to retire. Once you start really working, you'll want to start planning for retirement. We also have 401k, we have healthcare benefits, and we also have a bonus program when things are going in a positive direction. B&I is a unique animal in comparison to previous employment that I have, and very appreciative and would recommend it to any and all to seek employment and opportunity at.
Because for when you talk about things like lounges, because so many of our employees don't work on our site, we've opted for a up to $300 a year reimbursement program for wellness and activities. So if you want to go join a gym, you can more or less pay through that reimbursement, and you can actually use it to, you can use it to buy a pair of running shoes. You can use it for anything that is gonna result in activity. So as Gena said, the vast majority of our employees are all over the state of Florida. So instead of having a lot of on-site amenities, we try to reward employees that are just trying to, better their lives by reimbursing them for those activities rather than building. We actually talked about a gym on site, and we realized that only about a sixth of our employees would get to use it, and that didn't seem like such a great idea then.
Thank you. Yeah, something to keep in mind, what type of health packages do the employers provide? Do they provide any benefits for staying healthy, for being active? So $300 a year, that's awesome. Carl, what about your company?
We have a similar benefit arrangement. We have a wellness program. We have a healthcare reimbursement program, depending on whether it's an individual, a family, pretty substantial coverage there, minimal out-of-pocket expenses on healthcare, life insurance policies, discounts on car insurance policies. Our 401k program, you contribute directly out of your paycheck, and then at the end of the year, the company would match a significant portion of that directly into your 401k account. We also try to engage our employees as a group events, cookouts, picnics with their families. Obviously pre-COVID, hoping to get back to that soon. Try to build the group as a family, get to know each other, and just show our respect for each other.
Thank you. And then Ryan, what about RG Architects?
We're very similar to what we've heard before is paid vacation time, paid personal time, 401k salary match. I think we do 3%, half your health insurance, a number of other minor perks. And like Carl brings up, we do a lot of team bonding kind of things. We'll go out certain evenings, whether it be for happy hour or event or, lectures or dinners or things of that nature. We also do a lot of in-office stuff. We specify building products. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that would basically love to come in and show you what they're trying to sell and buy you lunch and talk about their products and talk about how specific roofs should be installed or windows. So there's a lot of interaction with the building community, and they'll take you to light plants to see how things are made. You can go to conventions and things of that nature is one of the perks that I always kind of enjoyed. A lot of free lunches.
Well, thank you. Well, I want to be very respectful of all of our panelists' time, so we will go ahead and wrap it up. But thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you, students, for your questions. Just keep in mind, if you are interested in architecture and construction, it is, if not the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing career fields here in Southwest Florida. I mean, if you look around and see all of the construction and new buildings, and it is, I personally think, one of the career fields that probably was not very affected by COVID. I know there was still a lot of construction still going on. Most people in the field are still employed, didn't lose out on their jobs. So that's something to also keep in mind, students. So thank you all very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you to all the business people. Thank you.
And students, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to give them to your teacher. You can send them to me, and I can get you in contact with the panelists, or I can reach out and get those questions answered for you. So thank you all very much for being here, and have a great Wednesday.
Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thank you.